As part of the present administration's efforts to curtail the spread of coronavirus COVID-19 ravaging the country and the world at large, Edo State Ministry of Education, in collaboration with Edo Broadcasting Service (EBS) and Academic Staff Union of Secondary Schools (ASUS, is organizing a television program for students in senior secondary schools, particularly those writing the West African Senior School Certificate Examination (WASSCE), the National Examination Council (NECO), and National Business and Technical Examination Board (NABTEB) for the year 2020 in the months of May, June, and July. The program will be held on EBS television channel every day from 12 noon to 1 p.m. beginning from Monday, April 6, 2020. The subjects selected for these programs are Mondays Mathematics, Tuesdays English Language, Wednesdays Physics, Thursdays Biology, Fridays Geography, Saturdays Civic Education and Economics, and Sunday Chemistry. Parents and guardians are therefore advised to draw the attention of their children or wards to this opportunity during the stay-at-home period.
Hello viewers, nice to be with you again. By the way, I'm Comrade Omo Izubo. About the same time last week, we were together on this same platform, during which I had the privilege to do an extensive exposition on comprehension writing. I recall that on that occasion, I took us through what comprehension means, how to strategize ourselves for the task of the exercise, what we should do in the process of grasping the storyline in the passage, and then how to answer questions that usually follow such exercises. You will recall that I talked about 3 types of questions that the examination bodies usually take interest in when they are setting their questions on such exercise. There is the one I describe simply as the direct question. Direct question. So called because it simply expects you to give back to me what I have given to you. In other words, you just read a passage. The passage, as it were, has told you a story, and at the end of which questions are put to ask you to bring back your understanding of what you got from the story. Such are very simple and direct questions. We also looked at question types that deal with synonyms, which I described as vocabulary exercise. They deal with words, your knowledge of words, in which case we find some words in the passage are indented or underlined, and you are asked to supply words that have the same meaning with them and can replace them in the passage. Then, of course, there is this third type of typical comprehension questions that we usually have. These deal with structure. In this kind of question, our ability to understand word groupings is usually put to test. This is where I want us to do a little bit more work beyond what we did last week. So we are starting from there today. Structures. Structure in English language, as I said, is the combination of words, grouping of words, putting together of words. In fact, it is the combination of words in our attempts to express ourselves. Structure in English is our combining words as we make attempts to express ourselves in languages. And if we analyze structures, we always have the possibility of three results. If you group your words, you get either of three results, which include, depending on how you have grouped your words, it might result to sentence. A group of words can become a sentence. Depending on how you have combined it, it can also be a clause. And on other occasions, you find group of words being phrases. Before I begin to explain each of these, let me begin by letting you know that the sentence is the most recommended for our students as medium of expression, whether in spoken English or in written English. You must endeavor as much as possible to express yourself in sentences. By the way, talking about sentences, this is the group of words that expresses a complete unit of thought following the grammatical accepted order. Sentences, I repeat, is a group of words that we engage to express a complete unit of thought that adheres to grammatically accepted order. If you look at that definition, you will discover that I have carefully stressed grammatically accepted order. That is to say that there are ways you can combine your words and you discover that the order is grammatically unacceptable. That is why, as you do your write-up, whether in letters, whether in essays, whatsoever, ensure that you are following the accepted grammatical norms or principles. Now, clause. Clause is also a group of words. It contains a verb, just like sentences, but it doesn't end up making complete sense on its own. It depends on other parts of the structure to be able to stand, balance, and make complete sense, even though it has the very important element of a sentence, which is the verb. Phrase, on the other hand, is a group of words that has no verb and therefore can only add or play part of a full structure. Itself does not have ability to stand on its own. This will bring us to a few examples that we have on the board. Big apple tree at the village square fell down in the course of the last heavy rain, obviously owing to the accompanying wild wind. That is the sentence. Let's take for granted that in this sentence, this part is underlined. The big apple tree. And you are asked, what grammatical name will you give to the underlined group of words? Then you begin to give it test. The test you do is to find out the words that are featured in the group of words. And if you look at the one under scrutiny, you will find that we have article the. We have adjective big. We have apple, noun, and we have tree, noun. Looking at it, it simply says the big apple tree. The big apple tree. If you look at all this, you will discover that the star word, or if you like, the head word here is the word tree. So every other word that you have there is just playing supporting role. But this is the key word. And this key word is a noun, as we have said. And because this is a noun, this is consequently a noun phrase. You discover, therefore, that it is not enough for us to be able to identify whether we are dealing with phrase, clause, or any other thing. But we are expected to go further to be able to identify if phrase, what type of phrase. If clause, what type of clause. That is why we have taken time to explain how we got to name this one noun phrase. Let us take for granted that was not underlined up to 3. Instead, we have the big apple. The big apple. You will discover that because we have the word apple, which is a noun, this group of words is still a noun phrase. It's still a noun phrase. But you are going to find out that there will be a difference between the roles played by the big apple and the big apple tree. Now, let's get to the second part of the question. What is its function in the structure where it occurs? In other words, what role is this group playing in the structure where you find it? Now, to be able to do that, you consider beyond the group of words that is underlined. Look for the major verb in the structure. Verbs, we are told, are action words. They are reporters of the action in a sentence. And if you go further, you are going to find that in this structure, what we have is fell down. That is the verb in that structure. That is the major plain word in that structure. This structure simply is telling us tree fell down. Tree fell down. That's all. Every other word that you have here are all trying to embellish and perhaps throw you out of balance. But if you know what you are doing, you remain focused and you get to the root of the matter. Tree fell down. That was the thing he's telling us. And if you consider this one, therefore, the big apple tree, and you are now asked, what is the function of this group of words that you have agreed to call noun phrase? What is its function in this structure? What job is it doing? You discover that it is the one that is reporting the action in the sentence. We have said that the action here is fell down. The question is, what fell down? Tree. If you like, apple tree. If you like, big apple tree. Or even the big apple tree is what fell down. Consequently, the phrase big apple tree is the one committing the action, the verb in the sentence. And all structures, whether a singular word or a group of words that play the role of reporting what the verb action did, is called complement. Now, let's come further. In sentence analysis, we have what we call the SVO, verb object. Even though we also have SVA, sentence, verb, adverbial. In either case, the verb is very, very prominent because it is the action word. It is the doing. It is what is reported concerning the sentence. So, whatsoever is performing the action of this verb is the sentence subject. The sentence subject is the performer of the verb action in any structure. So, the big apple tree, which is what is performing the verb action for, is therefore the sentence subject, is the subject of this sentence. The big apple tree, 1, is a noun phrase. 2, in this structure, it functions as the subject of the sentence. Now, we'll just take one more example because you recall we started this series last week. We'll take one more example and we'll be done. Assuming that we have underlined from here, in the course of the last heavy rain, the big apple tree fell down in the course of the last heavy rain. If this portion is what has been underlined for you, this one is quite a simple one. If you look at it, you will discover that that group of words begins with the word in. And the word in is a preposition. Therefore, we can safely say this is a prepositional phrase. Once it begins with any prepositional element, the whole structure is a prepositional phrase. So, Assuming that we have that same B part of the typical questions that we usually get from examination bodies, you have been able to identify this as prepositional phrase, and now you are asked what is the function that is playing here. Before we go to identify that, let me cross-check your memory. I assume that you know parts of speech. Parts of speech. We almost have as many parts of speech as there are, also featuring in groups of words. I know you know that we have nouns, we have pronouns, we have verbs, we have adverbs, we have adjectives, we have conjunctions, we have prepositions, we have interjections. These 8 parts of speech form the totality of all the words that we use or we have in English language. They are either in this pigeonhole or in the other. They must belong to either of these 8 groups. And we are saying here that if we have a word that we call noun, therefore we have noun phrase, therefore we have noun clause. If we have a group of words that we call adjective, then of course, if we have one word that is an adjective, then of course we have adjective phrases, adjective clauses, and so on and so on. If we have a word that is a verb, we have verb phrase. So it is just, the difference is just that in the case of group of words, they are playing the role of one singular part of speech. We have so much placed emphasis on verb. And you discover that in most cases, verbs are just simple, singular elements. Come, go, read, sing, talk, eat, and so on and so forth. But we can add other words to them to make a phrase. If you look at what we have on the board, we didn't just have fell, but we have fell down. Fell down. That is already a combination beyond one word. We can also have I have been waiting. I, remove that one, that is a preposition. Have is a verb, been is a verb, waiting is a verb. 3 verbs in one structure. That's a verb phrase. We can go on and on and on. The underlying thing that we want to bring to you is that almost as many parts of speech we also have groups of words featuring in those capacities. Now, let's come back to what we were discussing concerning this structure that we have identified as prepositional phrase. Taking it from here, the big apple tree at the village square fell down in the course of the last heavy rain. In the course of the last heavy rain. That's where our attention is now. In the course of the last heavy rain. We have been able to identify it as prepositional phrase. But what is its job here? What is its function here? You will discover that this group of words is reporting when the verb fell took place. The tree fell when? In the course of the last heavy rain. In the course of the last heavy rain. So, this one, therefore, this preposition is part of what we call adverbial. It becomes adverbial. adverbial of time. It's reporting time, the time during which that action took place. So it becomes an adverbial phrase of time. Adverbial phrase of time. So much for structures, because like I said before, you know we started this series from last week. I just felt that we should go a little bit in depth before we call it quits on this. So I'm going to do this. I just want to take this because it is different from what we have concentrated on, the phrase. Owing to the accompanying wild wind. Owing to the accompanying wild wind. Suppose this is what was underlined for us. You will discover, first of all, that unlike the other groups of words that we have studied, this group of words by itself has a verb. The verb accompanying, which means following. And because it has a verb, it is no longer a phrase. This is now a clause. As different from phrases which didn't have any verb. Owing to the accompanying heavy rain. Then the second part of the question will be, what, now that we have identified this one as a clause, first of all, what type of clause is it? You will find that this clause is giving reason why the tree fell down. That heavy tree fell down. It rained, quite all right, but that's not the reason it fell down. But there was a heavy wild wind that accompanied the rain. It is as a result of that accompanying wild wind that the tree came down. The following wild wind, or the wild wind that followed. So, this is now a clause, and it's giving reason. So this we call adverbial clause of reason. Adverbial clause of reason. So if this one was underlined for you, you have identified it and you are asked what is its role in the structure where it occurs. You now find that this clause is giving us the reason why the action of the verb happened. What is the action? Fell down. Why did the tree fall down? Obviously, owing to the accompanying wild wind. Like I said, so much for comprehension exercises, and of course, the structure types that follow. We are done with that. So we want to go over very quickly, within the short space of time still within our disposal, to look at something not too far from this. We are not talking of the write-up that you call article. Recall that in composition or continuous writing, you have essays, you have articles, you have letters, and all whatnot. But here, we are discussing article that is a member of the grammar forum, belongs to the grammar field. Articles are like determinants. Determinants. There are some group of words that we call determinants. They are necessary tags to some other words. They are attached to other words. And these that we are talking about include we have article A, we have article an, and we have article the. These three words are what we refer to as articles in grammar. Like I said, they are attached to other words, nouns in particular. So we have things like a boy, a teacher, a cameraman, a school building, and so on and so on and so forth. But what we want to specifically take notice of in these articles is the fact that they have rules that govern their application. In English language, spoken, or oral English if you like, there's also what we call consonants and vowels. Consonants and vowels. They are talking about sounds in English. And I know you know, this is too elementary for us to begin to talk about. You know that English language has 26 alphabets, 26 letters is what we have in English language. And all these 26 letters are split into two groups. What groups? And the vowel group. These 26 that we spoke about. Incidentally, consonant has 21 alphabets among the 26 alphabets. From A, B, C to Z are 26. And consonant alone has 21 of those alphabets. Whereas vowel therefore has 5 alphabets. When you are dealing with any word whose spelling begins with a consonant alphabet, that whole word is regarded as a consonant. Consequently, the word bicycle is a consonant, even though it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 alphabets. But because it begins with just this, the whole thing is called a consonant word. So we have a bicycle, a car, a desk. Name it, all the alphabets that are outside these 5. Because these ones are numerous, 21, let us only count out the 5 vowel alphabets. They include, these are the consonant alphabets we have in English. A, E, I, O, and U. Anytime you are dealing with a word whose spelling begins with any of these alphabets, and you want to add a tag to it, it must take the tag an. So we have something like an aeroplane, an ant, an egg, an empty space, an insider, an orange, here an umbrella, and so on and so forth. So outside these 5, every other alphabet of English compulsorily takes letter A, while all these take an. All vowel alphabets take an. All consonant alphabets take A. But we have very few exceptions to this rule. And you will soon see the reason for it. Take the word this word is begun by the letter H and is a member of the consonant family. Therefore, we are expected to have said a honest man, if you like. But that's not the case. Instead, we say an honest man. And that is because of the reason that this initial letter H belongs to the group of alphabets that we call voiceless. It is voiceless. H is a voiceless sound. So I cannot say a honest man or an honest man. No. The H is silent. You swallow that. And you actually begin your pronunciation from the next letter, which is O. An honest man. That is why this is not dragged along to the consonant family. So also we have we have several persons that are honorable beings. Maybe member of the State Assembly, maybe member of the National Assembly, even choice people like commissioners and so on and so forth. They are addressed as honorable. Is an honorable man or an honorable lady, not a honorable lady or a honorable man. No, that is because, as I said earlier, this letter, articles, I now want to wind up by way of conclusion. Look at this second structure that we have on the board. I want you to regard this as a piece of assignment to yourself. This word that is underlined from the youngest to doctor, treat it as first question or question number 1. What group of words is that? And what is its function in this structure where you find it? Then take the same group of words and terminate at doctor. Let one end here, and let the other one end here. Treat them separately as a piece of assignment for yourself, just to try your understanding of what we have been doing. And you are free to send your response via SMS or WhatsApp to my number that is showing on the screen. Bless you as we see next. Thanks.